This is the third in a series of videos on YouTube's terms of service. I'm making this in response to the YourTubeAdvocates number 20's videos on the terms of service. And this video will discuss YouTube's admonition against posting graphic or gratuitous violence. Now let me read from their terms of service. They state, graphic or gratuitous violence is not allowed. If your video shows someone being physically hurt, attacked, or humiliated, don't post it. Now, if you go down to the Community Guidelines tips link, and it's a little bit hard to find, but if you go down there, click on it, they'll explain this in more detail. And I'll go into that explanation toward the end of this video. I'm going to hold off now, and I want to show you why later on. I'm going to hold off discussing that right now. I believe they probably, and I don't know this for certain, but I believe they probably amended this as a result of a major YouTube screw-up in this regards. Now, at first blush, this might not seem like an unreasonable request. Of course, it's their site. They should have every right to say, hey, you can't post gratuitously violent videos on this. Okay, that seems reasonable until you think about it for a minute. And if you think about it for a minute, you might think, well, gee, we live in the real world. Guess what? There's gratuitous violence in the real world. Wars happen. I know it's a surprise. I know people will be shocked, but people are actually killed in war. Police brutality happens. Again, I know there may be some people who've never heard of Rodney King. I know it's a shock, but we live in the real world, and that should be allowed to be posted on YouTube. Now, fortunately, YouTube has been fairly good about allowing people to post police brutality. And in fact, instances where people have posted videos of police brutality have made a difference in the real life world. It's one way of making police accountable for their actions. Now, I know it cuts both ways, and oftentimes police are put in very tough, dangerous situations, and violence on their part is necessary. They'd have no choice. And it's very easy for someone making a video to come in the middle of the story and not capture the events that led up to the violence. And so it's very possible to get a distorted point of view of that. So I realize there are pros and cons for allowing this to be posted. But I think on balance, this can provide an important check to prevent unnecessary brutality, not just in the United States, but I think it's even more important in other countries around the world where you'll find police brutality even far more prevalent, especially countries, say if it was smuggled out of, say, Iran or North Korea or Egypt. Which gets me to a situation, and again, YouTube has been fairly good on the whole. But there is one prominent example in which YouTube, shall we just say, really fucked up big time. Oh my, I use that word fucked up. Fuck. Oh, I know, that's probably against YouTube's terms of service as well. Okay, well, screw that. Okay, I'm going to discuss in some detail an incident that happened in late 2007 or so. It's about a journalist, a vlogger named Wael Abbas, W-A-E-L. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his name right. Now, this guy isn't your run-of-the-Joe schmo. He's actually won the prestigious International Center for Journalists Knight Award for Excellence. And he's posted videos and made blog posts about the police brutality in Egypt. And unfortunately, YouTube suspended his account because of this, because of one particularly graphic video of police in Egypt brutally attacking somebody. I'm going to post some links in the sidebar. I really encourage you to watch them. Links to a couple of videos, a few videos and some information about Abbas. And you can see that this guy is a really prominent journalist. Now, when YouTube suspended his account, the shit hit the fan. I mean, major reporting was done on this. I'll post some links in the sidebar to that. Now, Abbas, when his account was suspended, he was kind of in disbelief. I'm going to read you what he said. He said of YouTube, with what they are doing now, they are helping tyrants. They are helping torturers. They are helping dictatorships. This is not really helping people who are fighting for democracy in third world countries. We thought that YouTube was our ally. It helped show the truth in countries like Burma. But with what they did now, it doesn't seem like that anymore. Even CNN got in on the act. I'm going to post a link in the sidebar to a video in which Wolf Blitzer reported on YouTube suspensions of the Abbas account. Well, there was a major outrage around the world, and a few days later, I guess YouTube was embarrassed by what they had done. I can only guess what was going on behind the scenes. I'm going to guess somebody at YouTube went, "Oh shit, we really screwed the pooch on this one." I can only guess. I'm going to post a link to a very important article posted by, and I never heard of them before, but by Menasat.com. This is a news site focusing on events in the Middle East. They're funded by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands, and this article is a must-read, and I'm just going to read you a little portion of it. And I think this is a really important article. They said, and I'm quoting, "Since November 2006, YouTube has been officially owned by Google Incorporated. It's therefore safe to assume that both sites maintain a similar philosophy. The mission of Google, as stated on Google's official page, is to organize the world's information and make it universally useful and accessible. But how can people make universal use out of Google's products if its staff seemingly practices censorship? How can people find or have access to certain information if Google suspends user accounts without issuing a valid reason or prior notice? Is Google's YouTube really functioning to serve and apply its stated mission as best as possible? One can't help but ponder such questions, seeing as this is not the first time YouTube caves to state-sponsored censorship." And again, I urge you to read the article. I'll post a link in the sidebar. So after this massive outcry, YouTube did the right thing. They restored his account. I'm not sure how long it was down. I'm guessing it was probably a few days, but they did restore it eventually. And they said he could post his videos of police brutality if he put it in the proper context. They never explained what the proper context is. One can guess that they looked at his videos. And YouTube says before we remove a video, before we suspend an account because of TOS, we'll actually look at the videos. We'll have somebody look and do an investigation. So theoretically, someone at YouTube did look at the videos, and they couldn't figure out from the videos itself, according to their story, that this was an example of police brutality. Well, gee, it's hard to believe that this wasn't in context, that they could figure out what was going on. After all, his name, Wael Abbas's account is named, believe it or not, Wael Abbas. And gee, if you really wanted to put it in context, wouldn't you say, use a search engine on Wael Abbas and try and figure out what he was about? I know that good search engines are hard to find. I know that the people at YouTube would have a difficult time finding a company that would have a good search engine. But you'd think they'd be able to figure it out, that somewhere somebody might have a decent search engine, and they might have taken say 2 minutes to do an internet search and figure out that this guy was an important journalist, and maybe that would have helped put it into the proper context if they had trouble figuring it out. But no, they just suspended the account. Well, fortunately, there was this major outcry, and the account was restored. But one wonders, if instead of being an internationally known and respected journalist, if this guy had just been Joe Schmo with 5 subscribers, and if he'd posted his police brutality video on YouTube, and they suspended the account, and no one heard of him, would they have restored his account if he'd simply written them a letter? Quite truthfully, I find it hard to believe they would. I think that it was this international outrage that forced their hand. They tend to respond when a lot of people contact them, and I mean a lot of people. If they really screw the pooch and there's major outrage, they tend to respond, I think, more than if some obscure user gets his account axed. Now, at the beginning of this video, I mentioned that if you clicked on the Community Guidelines tips, they had an important clarification of their policy, and let me read it to you now. I suspect that this came about as a result of their screw up, that they have learned from their mistakes. I suspect that this was not in place before they so blatantly screwed up. Here's what they say. They say, the world is a dangerous place. Sometimes people do get hurt, and it's inevitable that these events may be documented on YouTube. However, it's not okay to post violent or gory content that's primarily intended to be shocking, sensational, or disrespectful. If a video is particularly graphic or disturbing, it should be balanced with additional context and information. For instance, including a clip from a slaughterhouse in a video on a factory farming may be appropriate. However, stringing together unrelated and gruesome clips of animals being slaughtered in a video may be considered gratuitous if its purpose is to shock rather than illustrate. My guess is, and I could be wrong, but my guess is that clarification was not posted on YouTube before December 2007 when this incident involving a boss occurred. My guess is, fortunately, that YouTube has learned from its experience, and hopefully they will use a little bit more discretion in the future about suspending accounts. But one has to wonder, how many accounts have been suspended by people of 1 or 2 or 5 or no subscribers who've posted their very first video documenting police brutality. One has to wonder, has there been any instances such as that where there has been no outcry, and has those instances of police brutality effectively gone down the Orwellian memory hole, never to be heard from again? I don't know. Maybe none. Maybe YouTube has been really good. Maybe none has happened. Maybe this hasn't happened. Or maybe it happens a lot. There's no way for us to know. But there is reason for us to wonder, and maybe even be just a little suspicious. We just don't know. It's unfortunate. If YouTube was to communicate more with its audience, maybe we would have a little more confidence in them. Maybe YouTube does deserve our confidence, but we just don't know. I do have a suggestion for YouTube if they want to try and gain the trust of the community. It's unfortunate they posted this very important clarification within the tips on community guidelines. It's buried under a link that's not easy to find. It would be much better if they posted this within the guidelines itself, that they welcome clips of police brutality or of brutality from regimes around the world, that this was newsworthy and it deserves to be on YouTube, and it could in fact act as a deterrent to future brutality. So I hope they will change their guidelines to explicitly state that videos about brutality that happens in the real world can be posted in YouTube under these circumstances. Just a suggestion. This has been the Mass Analyst, under an N.